But President Trump, Vice President Vance, Secretary Rubio, and Secretary Bessent, and Elon Musk, they all know that regardless of what your priorities are, regardless of what you want the government to do for you or for some, other foreign country, right now America is on a collision course with a dangerous economic reality. And they know that bold, unconventional, and sometimes very painful measures are going to be needed to avoid the icebergs ahead. So all those guys, the Trump administration, they're going to be sued, they'll be maligned, they'll be threatened, they're called dictators, but they're not going to waver. Keep turning over the rocks and clearing the path to common sense, and the people will follow. And that's the angle. Joining me now, Stephen Miller, Deputy White House Chief of Staff. Stephen, you get the sense that the Democrats have finally kind of, I think, rallied around a new rallying cry, which is Musk the dictator, Trump the dictator, the people are the victims of the new dictatorship. Will that work? They tried it last time.
They've rallied around the biggest losing rallying cry of all time, which is going to war for a swamp nest of bureaucrats at an agency called the U.S. Agency for International Development. Not American development, not developing East Palestine, Ohio, not developing the forgotten communities in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, not developing the border towns in Texas that have been run over by an illegal alien invasion for 4 years under Biden, but developing countries all over the world except our own. There's probably no entity in the government that is more of an entrenched power center of unelected bureaucrats with less accountability, less oversight than USAID. They funnel money to their cronies all over the world through a swampy network of NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and cutouts, including potentially some very troubling elements of focusing on things like regime change and destabilizing foreign countries. But this is not about America's interests. Donald Trump is courageously restoring democracy. Article 2 of the executive branch vests all power by the Constitution. Article 2 of the Constitution vests all power of the executive branch in a president. It's known as the vesting clause. It says the executive power shall be vested in a president, singular, not in the bureaucracy, not in unelected, lifetime tenured career civil servants. Americans voted for one man, Donald J. Trump. They didn't vote for a single bureaucrat at USAID. They voted for Donald Trump to make government accountable to the taxpayer, to make government accountable for them. If the Democrats are saying, as they are, that President Trump cannot implement his agenda at USAID, that Donald Trump cannot fire recalcitrant bureaucrats, what they are saying, what Democrats are saying, is they oppose democracy itself. They oppose the idea that the American people can elect a man, in this case, our President Donald Trump, to reform the government according to the will of the people. This is a battle between the will of the people through their President Donald Trump and the will of an unelected federal bureaucracy. So we and President Trump are on the side of democracy.
What they're saying, their argument, and this is likely what they'll argue in court, is that the president is overstepping his own constitutional authority, that Congress allocates the funds and that the funds are spent according to the general directive, whatever act or law, act was signed into law by whatever president. And so that's what they're going to argue. But the problem is these agencies have enormous discretion that is unchecked. And that's why you have all these runaway programs that go forever, which are never X'd out. And there's literally zero oversight whatsoever over them. But they're going to argue that the constitutional authority here is exceeded by the administration. And to that you say?
Well, here's why they're wrong. There's a lot of reasons why they're wrong. First, the president is at the apex of his powers when he's exercising the foreign policy of the United States. So he has plenary authority to carry out the foreign policy of the United States. So bureaucrats at USAID cannot interfere in the affairs of foreign countries to prop up regimes, to thwart America's interests, to facilitate mass illegal immigration, nor to facilitate diversity, equity, and inclusion policies which violate federal civil rights law. All this
Well, wasn't a lot of this
DEI BS
money-
violates the
Yeah.
federal civil rights law of the United States.
Yeah,
So
I
the
gotta get
president is at
Harmeet
the apex of
Dillon
authority here.
confirmed.
Moreover, as you mentioned, Congress doesn't dictate to these agencies how to spend the money. Agencies exercise discretion on these grants, on these contracts. So take, for example, funding to these non-governmental organizations, NGOs, that fund open borders. So they funnel tens of billions of dollars to these open borders private sector orgs. Congress never passed a law giving those organizations that money. President Trump can not only pause all those funds, not only can the agencies pause those funds, but agencies can instead, if they wanted to, give those funds to organizations that support border security, that deport illegal aliens, that find criminal aliens, that provide detention for dangerous illegal immigrants in this country. There's no law passed by Congress that says that we have to funnel money to organizations that traffic children. Quite the opposite. These are crimes. Illegal immigration is a crime. DEI is a crime.
Well, Stephen, do you think in the end that these moves to shut down agencies, I believe it will pass legal muster, whether or not you get a lousy judge on the district court level, but certainly on appeal it will. And knowing the Supreme Court a little bit, I would imagine it probably will sustain scrutiny at the court as well. Do you have lawyers in place already, because some people aren't confirmed, to handle what will clearly be a crush of litigation here?
Yes, the Department of Justice has put together an incredible team of attorneys to deal with all this litigation. But I want to be very clear about an important point. Every agency of the federal government always has and will continue to, unless Congress changes the law, exercise independent discretion about grants. In other words, the way this process works, foreign countries, which is crazy, but foreign countries apply for money, as do domestic organizations. They submit applications. They say, here's why we want your money. Here's what we want to do with it. Agencies have always exercised discretion about whether to approve or deny those applications and will continue to. Except this time, these agencies will do so in accord with the policy priorities of Donald Trump that the American people voted for.
Well, so is USAID going to stay shuttered?
The plan is to remove anyone at USAID who is not supporting the policy plans and directives of the head of Article 2 as the Constitution requires.
Right. So it's all within the State Department, but you can just X out these. I mean, these things can just be X'd out and just dealt with in the normal course of State Department priorities. I mean, I think
they
that's
have
what Rubio was talking
they have an agency at state that deals solely with funding with foreign aid. But the bottom line here is USAID has been working against the interests of this country for decades now.
We got to go.
President Trump is executing his duty to align federal funding with our national security interests.
Well, and Ukraine money, that they shoveled money to Ukraine, too. We know that story. Stephen, thank you. Great to see you tonight.
Zelensky says he doesn't even know where half the money is.
Well,
it is time to get an account of how taxpayer dollars are being spent, and Donald Trump is doing it.
It's only $100 billion. I mean, you expect Zelensky to be able to find that? Come on, Stephen. You're asking too much. All right. Thanks so much.